Have you ever stopped to think about how devices on a network actually, well, talk to each other? It's not just one big, simple conversation. Turns out there are four really distinct ways they communicate, and each one has a very specific job to do. So let's break down how it all works. Oh, and just a quick heads up before we dive in, if you want to get into the nitty-gritty of any of this, all the detailed notes and sources are linked for you right in the description. So here's the puzzle we're really trying to solve today. See, a network has to be smart. It needs a way for two devices to have a totally private chat, right? But it also needs a way to make a big announcement to everyone. How does it handle these completely different situations? Well, that's exactly what these four communication methods are for. All right, first up is the one you're almost certainly using at this very moment. It's the personal, one-to-one conversation we call Unicast. Unicast is by far the most common and straightforward way devices talk. It's super simple. One device sends a chunk of information, and one, and only one, other device gets it. Think of it as a direct, private line between the two. The absolute best way to picture this is like a private phone call. I mean, when you call a friend, only their phone rings, right? You've got a direct, one-to-one connection, and nobody else on the network is part of that conversation. And you rely on Unicast all day, every day. Seriously, every time you load a web page, download a file, or even just check your email, your device is having a whole series of these little private Unicast conversations with the server out there on the internet. But, sending the same info to tons of people one by one is super inefficient. So what if you need to reach a specific group all at once, but not necessarily everyone on the network? Well, that's where our second method, multicast, comes into play. The magic word here is efficiency. Instead of a server sending out hundreds or thousands of individual messages, it can just send a single multicast packet. And that packet gets delivered only to a specific group of devices that have basically raised their hand and said, hey, I'm interested in that. A perfect analogy is a group shot or maybe a newsletter you subscribe to. The sender sends one message and it instantly goes to everyone in that group. But crucially, it doesn't bother anyone who isn't a member. You have to opt in, you have to subscribe to get the feed. Live video streaming is the perfect real-world example of this. One single stream goes out from a server, and thousands, maybe millions of viewers who've tuned in all receive it at the same time. The same logic applies to things like high-speed stock data feeds or when network routers need to share updates with each other. It is incredibly efficient one-to-many delivery. Okay, now for a really, really clever one. What if you need a service, but you honestly don't care which server gives it to you, as long as it's the fastest one? This is the magic of Anycast. I know, that definition sounds a bit complex, but the idea behind it is brilliant. You send a message to just one IP address, but behind the scenes, multiple servers all over the world share that exact same address. The network is smart enough to automatically send your request to whichever server is closest to you, guaranteeing you get the fastest possible response. Think about it like calling a big company's main phone number. You just dial one number, right? But the system automatically connects you to the call center in your region. You, as the caller, don't need to know where all the offices are. The network just figures it out for you. That's Anycast in a nutshell. And this brings us to the most important use for Anycast today, the domain name system, or DNS. When you type in a web address, your request gets sent using Anycast. Just like the quote says, the closest data center will be able to respond. That means the nearest DNS server to you out of a huge global network of identical servers is the one that answers. This is a massive reason why the modern internet feels so fast and so resilient. All right, let's hit pause for a quick recap. Unicast is one-to-one, your private call. Multicast is one-to-many, the group chat. And Anycast is one-to-one of many, finding the closest helper. Seeing them all side by side like this really makes it clear how each one has its own special job. And finally, that brings us to our last method, which is pretty much the complete opposite of a private whisper. This is the loud, everybody listen up shout known as broadcast. With a broadcast, the target audience is simple. It's everyone. When a device sends a broadcast packet, every single other device on the same local network, like say your home Wi-Fi, receives it and has to process it. There are absolutely no exceptions. Yeah, this is exactly like someone getting on a building's intercom or a town crier shouting in the main square. The message isn't targeted at all. It's meant for every single person within earshot, whether they needed to hear it or not. But here's where things get interesting. You can really see how our whole approach to this has evolved. In the older internet protocol, IPv4,
Broadcast is pretty common for certain tasks, but it's also really inefficient because it forces every single device to stop what it's doing and listen. And that's exactly why in the modern IPv6 protocol, broadcast was removed completely. It's been replaced by much smarter, more targeted multicast methods.
So after all that, what's the big takeaway? Well, it all comes down to choosing the right tool for the right job. Let's just put it all together one last time. You need Unicast for your private conversations, like web browsing. You use Multicast for your group messages, like live streams. You've got Anycast for finding the nearest, fastest server. And you have Broadcast, at least in the IPv4 world, for shouting to everyone locally. Each one is a totally specialized channel. And this is why all of this matters to you. The internet works as well as it does because it uses these methods intelligently. Using multicast for a video stream instead of a million separate unicast streams saves an incredible amount of bandwidth. Using Anycast gets you answers in milliseconds. This underlying efficiency is really what makes our entire digital world possible. So I'll leave you with a question to chew on. As our world gets more and more connected, with billions of new devices coming online, which of these methods do you think will define the future of the internet? Will the efficiency of multicast for group messaging become the most important? Or will the speed and resilience of Anycast be the most critical tool we have? The future of the network really depends on these choices. Thanks for tuning in.